Once upon a time, in a remote village in Africa, a girl named Zuri was born. With her shiny black hair and deep brown eyes, she was different from the other girls in the village. Zuri had a unique beauty, but her parents were always fighting, yelling and screaming each other non-stop. This had a bad effect on Zuri. Her parents' constant fighting made her hate this village. She wanted to leave as soon as possible and never see the faces of anyone in the village again. Zuri's beauty attracted the attention of every man in the village, but she was not interested in anyone. Dissatisfied with her small village life, Zuri dreamed of a better life. She was ready to do whatever it took to achieve these dreams. She wanted to get rid of her simple life in her village as soon as possible and build a new future for herself. One day, a caravan arrived in Zuri's village. All villagers gathered in the village square to see what's happening. Prince Kwame and his procession were staying overnight in the village. Zuri was seduced by the prince's luxurious clothes, his powerful soldiers and wealth. Only the prince could save me from this village life, she thought. The next day, the prince was bathing by the river in the village. Zuri found a way to attract the prince's attention and went to the riverbank. While the prince was there, Zuri threw herself into the river and started screaming for help. The prince immediately jumped in and saved Zuri. When they looked at each other, Zuri's beauty and innocence deeply impressed the prince. But it was all a lie. Zuri had tricked the prince to get out of this village as soon as possible and live a better life. From that moment on, Prince Kwame fell hopelessly in love with Zuri. When he left the village, Prince Kwame was determined to take Zuri with him. She thought about this offer for a while and barely pretended to accept it. But inside, she was very happy. Perhaps for the first time, something had made her happy. Her plan had worked. Now she would be free of this village forever. When Prince Kwame and Zuri reached the palace, Kwame was eager to introduce her to his father, King Omari. The king was surprised to see the young woman brought by his son, but Zuri greeted him respectfully, with a confident demeanor. Even though King Omari wasn't initially pleased with his son's sudden decision, he eventually gave his approval, thinking of Kwame's happiness above all. In the following days, Kwame showed Zuri around the palace, from its grand gardens to its rich library and halls adorned with shiny stones. Zuri was amazed by the palace's magnificence at every turn. Then, Kwame took Zuri to the highest tower, where they could see the entire kingdom. He expressed his desire for this kingdom to be their future home, surprising Zuri. One day, as they walked in the palace gardens filled with colourful flowers, Kwame turned to Zuri with love in his eyes. He expressed his wish to spend his life with her and asked for her hand in marriage. Zuri's face lit up with a sweet smile of triumph as she happily accepted his proposal. Following the proposal, Prince Kwame ordered everyone at the palace to start preparations for a grand wedding. Zuri and Prince Kwame's wedding was one of the most spectacular ceremonies in kingdom's history. The palace gardens were decorated with exotic flowers and guests came from all over Africa. The music and dancing continued throughout the night, and Zuri attracted everyone's attention with her beauty and good looks. But after the wedding was over, Zuri quickly tired of the prince. Kwame wrote songs to Zuri all day long, telling her how much he loves and reads poems to her. Every day he spoiled her with gifts of flowers from different lands and precious necklaces. This attitude of Kwame towards Zuri made her dislike him. She didn't even want to see him anymore. Instead, Zuri began to admire more and more King Omari's hard work, maturity, and influence over the kingdom. She thought that being with him would give her more power, status, and the love she wanted. So Zuri decided to slowly poison Prince Kwame. Every day, she began to add small doses of a drug to the prince's food. As the drug took effect, Prince Kwame became weaker and weaker day by day. But these changes did not go unnoticed by King Omari. Worried about his son's condition, the king summoned the best physicians in the palace, but even they could not find the cause of the prince's illness. Zuri's plan was working, but King Omari, worried about his son getting sicker, decided to look more into it. This was an unexpected problem for Zuri. To distract the king and gain his trust, Zuri tried to get closer to the king and gain his attention. One night, Zuri took the opportunity of King Omari resting in his room to dress up. She put on her best nightdress and put on her best scent. Wasting no time, she went to the king's bedroom. The king was surprised to see her. "Zuri, what are you doing here at this hour?" "My king, I was so bored in the palace, I wanted to come to you," she said, and hugged the king. When the king noticed Zuri's attention-grabbing dress and the fragrances she had applied, he immediately understood her intentions. How could his son's wife dare to do such a thing? He was angry with himself for not recognizing Zuri's lust for power sooner. But he didn't lose his temper. He pretended to comfort her. "Don't worry, everything will be all right. Kwame will get well soon and will have peace again." As soon as Zuri heard Kwame's name, she felt disgust inside her. "Nothing is going to get better. I don't want anything anymore, I'm so tired," she said, and hugged the king again. Understood Zuri's intentions, but even he didn't think she would dare to do so much. After a moment of surprise, the king pushed Zuri away and shouted, "How dare you do such a thing? You are the wife of my only son." Zuri was stunned by his reaction. She was just beginning to realize what she had done. For a moment, she was blinded by anger. She immediately started crying to appear innocent and hoped for the king's mercy. "Please, my king, I didn't mean to. Forgive me." The king shows Zuri the door. "Get out of my sight. I don't want to see you. Don't come here again." Zuri came out of the king's room with fake tears and ran to a room where there was no one else. And this time she really started to cry. She was sobbing, but her tears were not out of guilt. It was the first time anyone had rejected her. No one had the right to reject a beautiful girl like her. "How dare you reject me? Who the hell are you?" she cried. "You will pay for humiliating me. I will kill you, just like your son." After that day, Zuri went back to the sorcerer and asked for a very strong poison, different from the one he had given the prince. She was determined to kill the king at the first opportunity, but this time the king was cautious. He immediately ordered that Zuri be watched and that every move she made and every place she went be reported to him. The king found out that Zuri had taken poison from the sorcerer and poisoned Prince Kwame. He could have had her killed on the spot, but his son still loved Zuri very much, and Kwame would never forgive him if he did such a thing. So he had to prove to his son that Zuri was the reason he had become ill. The king devised a plan to trap Zuri. He ordered a grand feast to be prepared in his son's honor. Then he called Zuri to him and pretended to forgive her for her past behavior. Zuri was clueless. With fake sincerity, she hugged the king and acted as if she loved him. The king was aware of everything, but he needed to show his son what kind of person Zuri truly was. As evening approached, Great Hall was filled with festivities. Various dishes, drinks, performances and songs entertained the guests. Prince Kwame was there too. Although he looked pale and exhausted, his innocence never left his face. Zuri took advantage of the commotion of the feast and the king's good mood to pour the poison she had obtained from the sorcerer into a drink, and she brought it to the king. "Here you are, my king. Thank you for forgiving me," she said with a deceitful smile. King Omari observed Zuri closely. Their eyes met, and Zuri suddenly felt a pang of doubt. The king accepted the goblet offered to him by Zuri and ordered his servant to drink from it. As soon as the servant took a sip, he collapsed. The crowd was stunned. They stared at the fallen servant, trying to make sense of what had happened. Zuri was stunned by the king's gesture. The eyes of the whole hall were on her. "My king, I was given the drink by someone else. I thought it was just a special wine for the king," she lied, hoping to deflect the blame. At that moment, all the darkness, regret and despair in Zuri's heart poured out in a single tear. The king shouted, "Enough! I'm sick of your lies. You are the traitor who poisoned my son. I followed you, and I know you took poison from the sorcerer. If I had drunk this drink you brought, I would have died." King Omari ordered the guards to seize her without hesitation. As the guards approached, Zuri knew her situation had become dire. But at the very moment, Prince Kwame appeared. He looked pale and weak due to his illness, but he had a determined and serious stance. He quickly went to Zuri and hugged her. "My love would never do such a thing. You are wrong, father," he shouted to the king. Kwame kept the guards away even though he was sick, saying, "Nobody touch Zuri, or there will be dire consequences." The king came to Kwame and said, "My son, why are you so naive? She's the one who has poisoned you and made you like this. If I had drunk this drink, I would have died. She is a threat to us." Kwame barely stood up and gave his father a serious look. "You don't understand, father. You don't understand what it means to love. I know you see me as a naive child. I know you always think I need help, but I'm sick and tired of this. I'm not a child, father. I know everything from the beginning. But I drink anything from my love's hand, even though it's a poison." Everyone was shocked by Kwame's words. The king could not open his mouth for a while. Even Zuri, in tears, couldn't believe what the prince had said. Did he know everything? She thought. But why did he let it happen? Kwame slowly bent down to the princess and gently took her in his arms and led her to his room. As he left the hall, he said loudly, "If anyone comes to touch Zuri, I will kill him on the spot." Zuri was in for the shock of her life. She was so stunned by Kwame's actions and protectiveness that she could not even speak. In Kwame's arms, Zuri looked at how strong he was despite his illness. In that moment, Zuri saw Kwame as an invincible warrior. Who knows where Zuri would have been without Kwame? She closed her eyes and hugged him tightly, tears still falling from her eyes. Kwame gently put Zuri on the bed and wiped her tears. "It's okay, my love. Don't cry. I'm here. No one can hurt you." Zuri looked at Kwame admiringly, still shocked by what happened. The prince covered Zuri gently and stroked her hair until she fell asleep. The prince's touch made Zuri feel so comfortable that she fell asleep immediately. A few hours passed. Kwame sat on the terrace, looking off into the distance and thinking. The sky was calm and there was a light breeze, refreshing the hot air. Suddenly, he heard Zuri screaming, and the prince rushed to Zuri's side. Zuri had a bad nightmare. Her heart was pounding, and when she saw Kwame, she felt relaxed. "Kwame," she said, and hugged him tightly. "Please don't leave me." Feeling safe in Kwame's comforting hug, Zuri looked up at him. The prince's love had changed her heart. Zuri felt sorry for her bad thoughts and mistakes. Kwame's love made her understand what real love is. Zuri now really loved Kwame and wanted to be with him. But King Omari still wanted Zuri to go to prison, and he kept saying that. Kwame didn't want that to happen. One night, he decided to sneak out of the palace. Holding Zuri's hand tightly, Kwame led them through secret passages in the palace and into the dark forest. Along the way, Zuri stayed by Kwame's side. She felt so lucky for the courage and love Kwame showed her. Kwame looked at Zuri with a smile on his face, happy to have freed his love from prison. They spent the night in a cave, kept warm by hugging each other, and at dawn they took their first steps into a new life. The next day, King Omari was filled with rage when he learned that his son and Zuri had escaped, but he could find no trace of them anywhere. After they ran away from the palace that night, Zuri and Kwame made a new life for themselves in a quiet village. There, without anyone knowing their names or their past, they lived simply, just like regular villagers. When Zuri saw how honest and genuine Kwame was, she understood her own mistakes. She had been focused on getting power and wealth. She didn't realize how bad she had become. But watching Kwame be kind to everyone and do things to help others changed Zuri. After a while, Zuri became pregnant and they had a child. They became more happy and joyful. Kwame got better day by day and his illness recovered. He became stronger than ever, and his experiences transformed him into a man. However, inside Kwame, the desire to make peace with his father and mend their relationship grew stronger day by day. Finally, Kwame made up his mind and went to the palace to see the king. King Omari was surprised by his son's unexpected visit, but his conversation with Kwame was not at all what he expected. Kwame defended his relationship with Zuri, but King Omari strongly disagreed. King Omari became angry at his son's stubbornness and shouted, "Get out of my sight, get out of my palace and never come back." After these harsh words, Kwame left the palace and returned to his village. However, Kwame's departure deeply affected King Omari. The sorrow of losing his son and heir caused the king got sicker quickly. His illness got worse and worse with each passing day. One of the viziers, taking advantage of the kingdom's weakness and the king's illness, assassinated King Omari. Afterward, they seized the throne and the kingdom. Kwame felt really sad when he heard his father had passed away. He wished he could have made things right between them before it was too late. But now, he was so angry and wanted to get back at the vizier and whoever took over the throne. Kwame decided to gather an army and fight against the vizier to reclaim his kingdom and honor his father's memory. After leaving Zuri and his son in a safe village, Kwame promised to return. There was worry in Zuri's eyes, but his trust in Kwame was complete. Kwame began to gather an army to take back his kingdom and avenge his father's death. The news soon reached the vizier's ears. When the vizier heard that Kwame was marching on the kingdom, he decided to gather his own army and fight back. The two armies met on the vast plains of the kingdom. A tense silence fell over both armies. Then Kwame charged forward on his horse and shouted at the vizier, "You coward! How could you betray my father? I will make this square your grave." The vizier responded to Kwame's words only with a wry smile. "Let us see, young prince," he said. "We'll see who really owns the kingdom." And so, the battle between the two armies began. Arrows flew, swords clashed, and the screams of warriors filled the sky. Kwame fought bravely to honor his father's memory and take back his kingdom. The battle was long and exhausting, but Kwame's courage and leadership led his army to victory. The battlefield became the tomb of the vizier. In victory, Kwame took the throne as the rightful heir to the kingdom. After the battle, Kwame returned to the village he left behind where his family resided. When he was shown the way to the palace, Zuri had tears in her eyes and a smile. Kwame's love and sacrifice had changed Zuri's heart and made her a better person. Together with Kwame, they promised to bring peace and prosperity to the kingdom. They knew that their love and determination would guide them through any challenges that lay ahead.